All right. Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Brad Stewart with OddFlow, and today we are going to be talking about a topic that I think is exceptionally important and timely and relevant, and that is managed care, third-party administrative plans. What can we do about these? How do we handle them in our practice? What are the best next steps to make sure that we're staying competitive, but we're also not undermining our profits? So let's go ahead and jump into it because I think this is a crazy, important, relevant topic to the world that we're in today, especially audiology, private practice owners. So let me just open up my PowerPoint here and we will jump into it. Okay. So, how do we maintain profitability and continue helping more patients? So, by way of definition, managed care and audiology, these are third party administered hearing aid benefits. So, plans like um, Hearing Care Solutions, True Hearing, United Healthcare Hearing, they're not traditional hearing aid benefits, but instead patients are granted access to a discount plan. And the thing to think about is that this is commoditizing hearing care as a device that can be purchased at a discount. So that's what we want to really keep top of mind, is that this is turning us into a commodity if we just follow along with it and we aren't intentional about how we interact with these plans. So I've tried to really break it down simply. I know that there's probably more complexity to how you can approach taking these plans or not taking these plans. But basically, what I found is that there are a couple of sustainable ways to approach managed care third party plans, and there are a couple of unsustainable ways to manage these plans. So, sustainable ways opt out altogether and then determine how you're going to compete or strategically accept 3PAs or some 3PAs with a modified game plan for your services so that you can remain profitable. Okay. What I'm seeing, unfortunately, is a lot of clinics are instead going the unsustainable route, which might be I'm all in. I'm going to take everything. I'm going to see them just like my regular patients. I'm going to do all my best practice, long term follow up care, take great care of them, and just cross my fingers and hope it's profitable. Or I'm just going to put my head in the sand and act like it doesn't exist and hope it goes away. And maybe I complain because I don't like it, but I'm not actually going to do anything strategically to address it. This quote by Charles Darwin, I feel like, is becoming increasingly relevant in our industry. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. Okay. So, are we as audiologists, as business owners, willing and able to be adaptable to change? Because the reality is, change is happening whether we like it or not. And so then it's just up to us. Do we adapt or do we not? So, are you willing to change? A big thing that I see with a lot of my colleagues, and not trying to call people out here, but it's what I see, it's what I am aware of, and it's what I'm trying to combat personally in my own self, is letting go of the ego and listen to the market. I think as audiologists, a lot of us have gotten pretty fat and happy just being able to say, hey, I'm worth the premium because I'm an audiologist and I'm good. Consumers have more information. Consumers are aware that there are alternatives to us as hearing care providers, and increasingly there are more and more alternatives. And believe me when I say that that's only going to become more the case, not less the case. There are going to be more major consumer electronic players that are getting into the hearing augmentation and hearing treatment game above and beyond just these managed care programs. Plus, I suspect these managed care programs will continue to infiltrate not only into the Medicare Advantage programs, but also into traditional commercial hearing aid benefits as well. So we have to be able to let go of the ego and stop saying things like, well, I charge what I'm worth. And consumers just need to understand how valuable I am. We need to stop living in our mind, and we need to start being willing to put ourselves into the mind of the consumers. And how do we modify our behavior and our messaging and our approach to hearing care treatment in such a way that it's relevant and valuable to today's modern consumer? How do we disrupt ourselves rather than allowing outside forces to disrupt us? One of the things that I see happening a lot with audiologists is that we're reactive, right? So something happens and we react. We get scared and we react. We get concerned and we react. The fact is, we can see, and I've been practicing audiology since 2012. And even in 2012, I was able to see, like, listen, I watched Uber come in and totally mess up the taxi industry, right? And at that point in my practice, I was like, I'm going to do house calls. I'm going to differentiate myself. I'm going to differentiate on service. I'm going to truly create a different type of value in my market. That's the way that we need to be thinking, because we can see the way that the market is headed, right? So we need to be intentional and proactive about disrupting ourselves first before we allow outside market forces to disrupt us. If we can disrupt ourselves first, if we can create a better customer experience first, if we can make things more consumer centric first, then we don't have to be as reactive to what outside forces and industries and markets are doing. So we can take ownership of our own future, right? Isn't that more exciting and more compelling, the thought that I can take ownership of my future versus I have to be scared because I don't know what's going to happen and I don't know how I'm going to react? What if we could use a little bit of intuition and a little bit of foresight to see what's coming and be proactive about it? And then finally, the reason that we do this, right, help patients get the care that they need. We also know that in many cases, assuming you're an audiologist or a hearing care provider that follows best practices and you truly are providing top tier care, we know that in most cases, a patient's going to be better off working with you than they will be with a big box or with over the counter, or even with some providers that accept some of these managed care plans. All right, so let's talk about our options. Option one that we talked about was opting out. Just not going to take them and I'm going to figure it out from there. Okay, cool. What are the benefits of that? A big one is we don't have to worry about following the 3PA guidelines. So we can practice audiology the way that we want to practice audiology. We can see our patients the way that we want to see them. We aren't having our care dictated by a contract, right? We have no concerns about cutting corners or compromising our care, or perceiving that we're compromising our care to remain profitable. And then finally, you own your own patients, not the insurance company or the 3PA. So these are all very relevant, very true benefits of opting out of taking these plans. What are some disadvantages? In all likelihood, you probably have patients already in your database and prospects that are going to be coming into your clinic off of your marketing that are going to opt to go elsewhere because they want to use their benefits. So you have to be willing to accept that in some cases you aren't going to be able to convince them and they're going to want to go off and use their insurance benefit. Reasonable. You might find yourself in a pricing war to stay competitive. So this is that reactivity that I'm seeing in the market. We're changing our business models reactively, right? We're not doing it because we think it's what's best for our business. We're not doing it because it's even what we really think is best for the patients. We're doing it reactively to stay competitive. So unbundling is one thing that I'm definitely seeing as a trend, which it's not to say that unbundling is bad, but how many clinics, how many business owners are unbundling the cost of their services from the cost of the commodity, the product, the hearing aid, just so they can say, well, I can match that price, right? So we're racing to the bottom, which is a dangerous game, because the reality is we don't, as independent practice owners, we don't have the buying power that these big companies have. So the race to the bottom is going to kill us ultimately. There's no way you can compete racing to the bottom. It just doesn't work. That's not the space that we fill in the market. So we need to be really careful if that's the approach that we're taking. So here are some things that I'm doing, that our OddFlow users are doing, that I'm seeing and that we're seeing as possible solutions that we can use inside of our clinic if we're opting out of these managed care plans to stay profitable, to stay competitive. So one thing to think about is, instead of defaulting to unbundling, use unbundling as a discounting model. So this is what I'm doing in my practice. We start with fully bundled, which in my mind is optimum care, right? We start with optimum level of care. We start with care for as long as you have the devices. We want to make sure for as long as you have them, you're taken care of, you're hearing well, et cetera. So they can pay upfront for all of that care, or if they have a managed care plan, or if they're concerned about the price or whatever, we have the option to separate the services from the product, right? And then get a lower price because they're receiving fewer services. There's some psychology here, right? Because we're anchoring the price high, we're starting at the very highest price, and then we're giving them the option to go down versus what my colleagues who are starting unbundled do, which is starting at the low price, their fully unbundled price, right? That's the cheapest that they'll ever be able to get that product, and then adding the services, which makes it more expensive. And so in the patient's mind, those services are kind of a burden to have to add on, as opposed to if we flip the script and we do it the opposite way, now it looks like, okay, well, this is a way to make the pricing more competitive. Another way to think about it is to have an alternate product line that you use as a comparison product line against the managed care. So you could negotiate with like a kind of a second tier manufacturer like a Sonic or Bernafon to get really good cost of goods on those. And then you can sell their premium and their advanced products under a different kind of product category or service category than your regular Oticon, Phonak, Starkey, Widex. And you can have an in-house discount program that's competitive with these managed care plans. And I do recommend, and it says in here, I recommend being thoughtful about the branding and calling it something that's kind of catchy and having its own kind of marketing materials and making it like a distinct program that's competitive with these managed care plans. Yeah, and here's we in my clinic, we unbundle as a discount, and you can just see how we can use this to differentiate the commodity from the service. So we're showing that they're still getting really great care, and we're starting with the optimal long-term care. But if they want to go down to more basic service packages, they can do that, and we just take some of the cost off of the top line price. Okay, here's another option, right? We strategically accept 3PAs, and here are some of the benefits. So if we strategically accept the plan, so we accept 3PAs and then we're strategic about how we manage them, we can keep our patients in-house. So if we have current patients in our database or patients that come in off of marketing, we're not driving them elsewhere. They're staying with us, even if they have a 3PA benefit. We can benefit from some of the free referrals that we get from these managed care plans. So we just get patient traffic being driven into our practice without any work, which is always the sales pitch from the managed care plans, right? They're like, oh, well, you get free referrals. You're getting free patients that you wouldn't have had otherwise, which, there's some truth to that. It can fill empty space in the schedule with revenue generating appointments. So if you're trying to add, like trying to bring on a new provider, or if you're trying to open a new office, or whatever, or if you're just not that busy, you can fill up your schedule with more of these patients that are revenue generating, and you can sell service plans or possibly convert them to private pay. Now, with this one, you do want to, consult your contract and stuff, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Disadvantages. There are some very real disadvantages to accepting 3PA plans. For one, they can end up overwhelming your schedule. Block scheduling is the answer to this problem. They can cannibalize patients earned through your business's marketing efforts. This is what my practice does. We do accept some 3PA plans, and we've done some things strategically to make it work. But they can cannibalize. Like if we send a direct mailer out, a prospecting piece, and somebody comes in and they have true hearing, there's the possibility that we just get a $500 reimbursement off of that person who it cost us $350 to get in off of that direct mail piece. That's a real consideration that we need to think about. The reimbursements are already low and they seem to be decreasing, and it seems like the reimbursements are going down, and the time commitment to take care of patients is becoming longer. So We need to be aware of this so that we can be strategic about how we approach it. And in some cases, it might tie our hands on how we can care for our patients because we have to remain profitable to stay in business. So we might have to change the way that we're approaching patient care. So here's some solutions so that you can strategically accept third-party administered plans. First, assess your staffing model. I think this is something that a lot of audiology clinics do significantly worse of a job than most other healthcare industries. So think about dentistry, right? When you go see your dentist, the first person you see is the hygienist, right? They clean your teeth, they look at everything, they get them all ready. And then the dentist comes in and he looks at your teeth and tells the assistant what's going on and what needs to be done. And then the dentist leaves and the assistant does the rest, or the technician does the rest, right? This is the case for optometrists, for physicians. So we need to be physical therapy clinics. We need to be thinking about how we use support staff for lower skill tasks. And some of that could be taking care of your managed care patients long term. Could also be hiring a hearing instrument specialist rather than an audiologist to see some of these patients. So we need to look at our staffing model and make sure that we don't have audiologists seeing every single appointment for these lower reimbursed patients. Your audiologist should be the top. They should be the one who is doing the diagnostics, the complex stuff, the fittings, the adjustments, the stuff that really requires their expertise, and then use support staff for the rest. Differentiate your third-party service packages from your private pay service packages. So I do not recommend having the same type of standard of care for your third-party patients as you do for your private pay patients. And we'll talk about that more because I know this is controversial, but I think it's the way we have to think about it. And then finally, convert them to direct purchase. So this is going to be based on your contract. Some plans do, or let me correct that, many plans do have the option. They don't advertise this and you don't often hear it, but most of them do have the option for a patient to sign a waiver and work with you directly. So it might be that, you know, that patient who came in off my mailer who has True Hearing, once they see the difference between the service packages with us versus True Hearing, they might say, I just want to work with you, right? So our job is to communicate to the patient what are their options, to educate the patient on what are their options, what are the pros, what are the cons. I'm not trying to persuade them one way or another necessarily, but I just want to clearly outline and educate what the pros and cons are so they understand what it is that they're getting, and then let them make the decision, right? When we talk about what does the market want, this is the direction the market's going. People want to be more empowered in their decision making. They don't want prescriptive doctors, which sounds contradictory, but they don't want to go into their doctor and have their doctor tell them this is what you need to do. No conversation, right? They want to be involved in the decision making process. If we convert to direct purchase, that gives us the opportunity to keep our patients either way. And if our service plans and staffing models are structured properly, we can be profitable whether they go with us directly or whether they go through their managed care plans. So again, this is just an example, but this is kind of what we do with our managed care patients. When we talk to our managed care patients, we tell them, listen, when you buy your hearing aids through your insurance company's discount plan, and it's not a traditional insurance policy, it's a discount plan. When you do that, you're just buying the hearing aids at a discount. You're just buying hearing aids, right? So it's we have to approach the way that we handle your care differently with these plans because you're simply buying the hearing aids and I'm simply dispensing the hearing aids to you. So we'll get you the hearing aids and you'll get them at a discount and they'll be less expensive than they would have been directly. But we do lose some things, right? We lose some of our best practice fitting and follow-up care. We lose some of that long-term structured follow-up care. We lose priority scheduling. It might take longer for you to get in for appointments. So we outline that for our patients, right? And in our clinic, we've assessed what we're okay with telling our patients. And in some cases, they choose to go with us. And in some cases, they choose to go with their discount plan. And it works either way. And if they're educated up front, everybody's happy, right? A lot of people don't care about best practices. They just want the cheapest hearing aids. It might be that next time they buy hearing aids, after they have that experience, they might want best practices. Sometimes people need to make a decision once and live with that decision before they can maybe come back and make the more premium decision, the more optimal decision. If this is interesting to you, this is the type of stuff that we're doing at Oddflow. We're working with our members to assess the very best ways that we can approach these tricky, tough problems inside of our practices to make sure that now and into the future, we're going to be successful. We're going to thrive. We're not just going to have to scratch and claw to stay alive. We're going to be thriving in the future audiology world. We're going to be the leaders of the industry. So if you're interested in learning more about Oddflow, shoot me an email with the subject line interested, or go to oddflow.com, and we have a sign up for our email list so you can learn about our founding members launch, which is coming up this August. And I hope to see you there. All right, talk to you soon.